questions, places of where I need to clarify something. Another important text in Confucianism is the Zhuangzi, attributed to a man named Zhuangzi, but there's a question about his historicity as well. There's nothing in the text that says, I, Zhuangzi, wrote this. For the Zhuangzi, there is a way in which it continues with the Daoism. Right? The Tao is not just a model for right living, though. It's also a force that sustains creation. The Zhuangzi, the author, is very interested in exploring these metaphysical aspects. Right? Philosophical speculation on the nature of the universe, the nature of the Tao. The Daoism focused more on politics. The Zhuangzi focuses more on everyday life. The focus of the teachings of the Zhuangzi are done in parables. And how do you explain what can't be explained? Well, you try to have to use stories or paradoxes. And things that will help people understand. The way to achieve this knowledge, to get beyond, or the goal is to achieve this spiritual freedom. And to get to the point of thinking about, or not thinking about, but achieving this spiritual, self-transcending liberation. Embracing nature and all that that means. And one of the ways to do this is through what the Zhuangzi calls sitting and forgetting. The need to empty the senses, free the mind. You unlearn what you have learned. And so again, that's that critique of Confucianism. Superior wisdom found through all of this frees the sage, the wise person, from the emotions and the rituals of life, the circumstances of life. And much like other mystical approaches to religion, the goal is that through all of this, you'll transcend yourself, you become one with the universe. I think a lot can be said about the Zhuangzi that is reflected in this picture of one of the events of the Zhuangzi. The author wakes up from a dream in which he has been dreaming that he was a butterfly. Which one, however, is truly real? Was he Zhuangzi dreaming of being a butterfly? Or is he a butterfly dreaming that he is a man? Yeah. So, he's very metaphysical, right? Deep. Oh, yeah, all right. So just like Star Wars, you can see how Star Wars is drawing from these things. If you've seen in the Matrix movies, you can see how the Matrix is drawing from a lot of these kind of things as well. So a lot of these Eastern religions have become fertile fields for pop culture. But again, a lot of this is still related to philosophy. How do we get into religion? Well, the religious aspects of Taoism are those things that deal with the kind of things we would expect. The afterlife, ritual, transforming ritual. And so there are a variety of Taoist schools, but many of them, as we have the more religious components, are seeking for immortality. things like riding the clouds like dragons and living in the paradises on the islands in the eastern seas. How did you achieve that? Well, essentially there were two ways in more religious forms of Taoism to achieve this. The first was through meditation and what was known as inner alchemy. So meditation, breathing exercises, fasting, even things like certain practices when it came to sex, were all conceived of as multiplying the life force, or the qi, which is spelled Q-I, qi. That you, through these practices, focused on this undying spiritual essence inside of yourself that will survive the body's death and will live on in immortality. So, if the one way is inner alchemy, the other way must be outer alchemy. What was that? Yeah, extra point. What was outer alchemy? Well, outer alchemy had to do with using elixirs that were considered to bring life-giving force. And so a lot of this would be transforming metals like mercury or cinnabar, which is a type of mercury, or gold, into an elixir that you would ingest that would give birth to an inner child whose body and soul are invincible to decay and death. Now, whether these people lasted on after death, I mean, certainly as Christians we would believe there is something that goes on. Their spiritual destinies are quite unknown, but archaeologically it ended up preserving quite a few bodies because of those minerals.
They probably didn't last very long.
Well, yeah, the mercury levels were so low that it didn't cause death. But the ingestion of it over time did things to the body that, archaeologically, you see these, some of them are just statues, but then these armies, these statues of armies, but then you also have, other people whose bodies have been preserved because of the amount of minerals they ingested over a lifetime. Another part of religious Taoism are a variety of temple rituals to a group of immortal beings. People that they have that they would entreat for things like making it rain, helping with the harvest, vanquishing the troublesome spirits. And so there's a variety of stories about different immortals and how they lived and what they are connected with. Associated with things like youth, and so if you're younger, you would approach certain immortals, poverty, wealth, high rank. Some were connected with occupations like being a barber. So all these different kind of connections. Now, you might expect from the philosophical outlook of Taoism that it wouldn't really become an institutionalized type of system since it's against institutionalism. Well, it did. The historical distance we're talking about has a lot of effect on that. Particularly what seems to have been a key factor in this institutionalizing was the migrating of Buddhism to China. Buddhism arrived in China around 120 CE. Mahayana Buddhism, of course, seems to be the one, and we talked about things like Chan or Zen Buddhism. So most East Asians, including the Chinese, as Buddhism spread, came to believe in karma, as Mahayanists tend to worship the Buddha and celestial bodhisattvas, and sought to achieve enlightenment. Well, Taoists tried to address some of those things that were being answered by Buddhism, through things like creating monasteries. So creation, I mean, there weren't Taoist monasteries before Buddhism, so, creating places for people to live a monastic Taoist life. One of the differences between Taoist monasteries from other types of monasticism and other religions is that monks and nuns were considered to be of equal status. In most cases, in most religions, even in, for example, Catholicism, the monks had a higher status than the nuns. So you have monasteries, you have the creation of regularized rituals. So these elaborate rituals developed in the monasteries. Now again, of course, it starts off as this critique of the rules and rituals of Taoism. But the very thing that it had once condemned now becomes a way for it to survive in the face of Buddhism. A lot of religious traditions do that. The founding principles sometimes become changed or modified in the face of contemporary situations. There was other ways that things were systematized. The creation of a set of scriptures or texts. And even, different sort of Buddhist schools or different types of Buddhism. Just mentioned two of the main ones today. There are other forms, but these are the main. The first is what's known as the way of Orthodox unity, sometimes referred to as the Celestial Master School. It developed in the 100s when a man named Zhang Daling had a vision where he encountered a being named Lord Lao, who is some sort of combination between the Tao and Lao Tzu. Right? So it's kind of Lord Lao. He made Zhang Daling a celestial master and taught him about morality, meditation, and medicine. And so you have these kind of divine beings here, this deification of Lao Tzu. The role of the celestial master is passed down through male heirs, but women can also have position of leadership within the group. The second largest school in Taoism is complete perfection. The Chinese government only recognizes certain forms of religion officially. Protestantism and Catholicism, right, so it's not just Christianity. Protestantism, Catholicism, Buddhism, Islam, and then the complete perfection form of Taoism. So it's the one that's officially recognized by the state. It develops in the 12th century. The founder, a man named Wang Changyang, had a revelation about two heavenly immortals, and they encouraged him to kind of mix Taoism, Zen Buddhism, and Neo-Confucianism. This form of Taoism is very heavily monastic. The ascetic life is one of the primary virtues. And the focus within this form is to emphasize meditation, inner alchemy. Questions about Taoism or any of these last things?
Why just complete perfection recognized by the state?
It probably, I don't know specifically, but like I said, it's the Chinese government trying to control religion. Probably because it doesn't have that authority structure like what's in the way of Orthodox unity, where there's the celestial master. And I mean, that's part of the problem they have with Tibetan Buddhism. There's the Dalai Lama who's the separate authority. So my guess is it probably has something to do with that. To kind of finish up as we're closing here, another one of those sayings of the three traditions to remind ourselves of this intermixing. Somebody said about these three faiths, you use Buddhism to rule the mind, Taoism to rule the body, Confucianism to rule the world. So this kind of intermingling of how these things. And that's probably why the Chinese government is turning to Confucianism. All right, so we will pick up on Thursday with new religious movements, groups that have developed in more recent years, things like Baha'i. We might have some time to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology. Actually, we might say Scientology for another time. But new religious movements, why they're